We are expecting, we don't know when it will happen, but we are expecting to hear a statement or a speech from Muammar Gaddafi, and of course we will bring that to you as it appears, hopefully, on Libyan state television. A lot more to come on Al Jazeera. Libya, of course, one of the world's main oil producers. We'll be looking at how the unrest might affect oil prices around the world.
And I'm Imran Khan at the web desk. I'll bring you up to date on all of the latest internet chatter. There's lots on the opening of Libya's eastern border. Stick with us for the latest.
China has a growing elderly population, and as a consequence of its one-child system, there are fewer younger people to take care of them. It's a responsibility that often falls to the state. Private retirement homes offer an alternative, but independence comes at a price, financially and emotionally. Faces of China, at this time on Al Jazeera.
In my classroom, there is no Arabs. It's just me.
They know they have to live here in our country.
A Palestinian student at university in an Israeli settlement must find the uneasy balance between honoring his heritage and securing his future.
You have to remember, here in this place was a country called Palestine.
Mohammed Speed, a witness special at this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. Let's remind you of the latest developments in Libya now. In the last half hour, the UN Security Council emergency session has just begun. Reports are coming in that the country's leader, Muammar Gaddafi, is to make a speech shortly. And that comes as Libya's defense ministry has blamed criminals for anti-government protests in a televised statement. Meanwhile, Libya's ambassador to the United States has resigned, saying he no longer wanted to serve a dictatorship regime. Muammar Gaddafi's former aide has said the country's leader will neither leave nor step down. Well, we have some more information on the bombardment of the capital by military jets on Monday night. One source says the bombing was focused on army ammunition depots near Tripoli. Jets also targeted command centres to stop troops joining the protesters or to stop protesters getting hold of weapons. And witnesses say helicopter gunships were used to fire on the streets in order to scare demonstrators away. Now, a lot of people trying to get out of Libya, of course. Nazanin Moshiri is at Ras Ajir on the Tunisian side of the border with Libya. Nazanin, tell us what you've been seeing, because there's a lot of Tunisians in Libya who are trying to leave.
It has been a really developing situation here on the border, Shuli. We've seen a stream of Tunisians coming out from the Libyan border, which is literally 100 meters away from me. We are 160 kilometers away from Tripoli, and many of these Tunisians live and work in Libya. They've left their homes, they've left their jobs because of the escalating violence. We've spoken to people here who've seen bombings, they say, from the air in Tripoli. They spent the night in Tripoli. They have relatives and friends who are in Benghazi. They can't get them out right now because Benghazi is in the east and we are in the west. It's easier for them to come out through this border because they don't need a visa, and also they don't need to. They can come out very easily through this border. It's very easy to get across. But what they've been telling us is at the border, when they reach the border, the Libyan police and army are taking away their mobile phones, taking away their money. They're pretty angry about that. They're also angry about the fact that the Tunisian government has been slow to respond to this developing situation, and they haven't managed to send them any help to get them out, although we have heard in the last few minutes that 5 aeroplanes will be on their way to Libya to get the thousands of Tunisians still stuck there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Tunisian efforts. So you're saying planes are being sent. What else is being done to facilitate the evacuations?
They have they've been beefing up their presence here on the border. We've seen special units of the military coming in and also setting up tents and giving people food and water. Interestingly, actually, we've seen ambassadors leaving this border too. We saw the UAE ambassador leaving, and also we understand, we spoke to the ambassador, the Qatari ambassador's cook, who says that he has left as well and that the embassy is closing down there in Tripoli. So a lot of movement out from this border, an extremely important place. But what the Tunisian government is saying is they're condemning the violence there. They're also condemning what they call is targeting of Tunisians and also Egyptians, because a lot of Libyans, pro-Gaddafi Libyans, are targeting them, blaming them for the uprising.
And what are people telling you about scenes inside Libya, the people who are coming through?
Well, the people that we spoke to are pretty frightened about their journey coming out. They say that although things were a lot calmer today, they still saw militia on the roads, armed gangs. They weren't sure whether they were pro-Gaddafi, if they were protesters, just ordinary people. They really didn't know what to say to these people. And often they had to spend 2 or 3 hours at checkpoints, held at gunpoint, before they could manage to make their way out and get to this border. And what they're particularly concerned about are the Tunisians who are stuck on the eastern side of Libya, unable to make it to Tripoli. They're unable to make the journey to this border. They want more help for those people. They say they can't get in touch with them. They don't know how they are. And that is what is frightening people here.
Nazanin, thanks very much indeed for that. Nazanin Mashiri on the Tunisian-Libyan border there. OK, some news coming out of Libya now. Libyan soldiers in the eastern city of Tobruk have told a Reuters correspondent on Tuesday that they no longer backed Muammar Gaddafi. They said the eastern region was out of the Libyan leader's control. Residents also said the city was now in the hands of the people and had been so for about 3 days. They said smoke rising above the city was from a munitions store which had been bombed by troops loyal to one of Gaddafi's sons. Now, Libya, of course, is one of the world's biggest oil producers, but with the continuing unrest, analysts say that reserves are not what counts in the short run, but daily output production. Libya has the largest oil reserves in Africa and second largest in the world, and that produces $154 million of revenue a day. This, as 2/3 of the country's population earn less than $2 a day. Caroline Bain, an oil and commodities specialist from the Economist Intelligence Unit, says the ongoing situation in Libya would have a negative impact on the country in the short term.
Libya produces about 2% of the world's global supply of oil, but it is the world's 12th largest exporter, so it is important to the world oil market. But I think it needs to be put into context. At the moment, OPEC is restraining output. They've got production ceilings. Reportedly, there is spare capacity of about 6 to 8 million barrels a day in OPEC member states alone. So if Libyan oil was to be disrupted in a serious way, it might take a week or so, or perhaps a month or so, but there is available capacity for oil production.